Alright, so as the title of this video says, today I want to talk about side swiveling or center swiveling. This is been kind of a long argued kind of a matter, and so I thought I'd kind of share my personal views on it and also some experiences that I've had. Maybe give you all some insight on whether you want to stay with side swiveling or change or whatever. Opinions are good to have, and not one thing is definitely right, especially in this kind of situation here. So I thought I'd give you guys a little insight. All right, so for those of you who don't know, whenever I talk about side swiveling or center swiveling, here's two options here. So here we have that's a Duke 1 3/4 here, and as you can see here, see if I can get a little closer for y'all here. But you can see the way this trap is swiveled, the swivel is coming actually off the side of the frame, right? Hence the name side swiveling. There's also an area right here, that you can center swivel it, but this trap's set up side swiveling. All right. Now, opposite here, you can see I've got this. This is a Duke 1 1/2 here, and I've got it set up in that hole you saw in the 1 3/4. I've got this center swiveled, right? Now this is all stuff that comes from the factory, with these traps, Duke brand in particular, and a lot of the other brands too. But they kind of give you the option if you want to move that J hook around. Another option here is what I've done to these are Duke number 3s here. Now you can see they've got the option here, obviously, to side swivel or to center, as you saw in the 1 1/2. But what I've actually done is I've actually welded in a center point here, added a swivel here. This is all homemade. I've got videos on it. But these are what I use for canines. So I like that little bit of added swivel. A little bit of a beefier situation. So most all your major brands, whatever they are, but most all your dedicated canine traps are going to come center swiveled. You can see here, this is a Duke. This is a 650 Pro here. You can see it's center swiveled from the factory here. I've got some. Let's see. There's a Bridger number 3 here. Different brands. This one here's center swiveled from the factory. This one's got a base plate on it as well as the 650. Add a little bit more robustness, as it were, to the frame of it. So getting back to what we were talking about, center swiveling or side swiveling, which is better? This has been a long debated issue. Now, just from the simple fact that almost every major brand out there, their canine traps are center swiveled, would lead you to believe that yes, center swiveling is better. And in my honest opinion, I do believe that's the case. So a lot of your traps that you buy straight from the factory will be like this 1 3/4 that I showed you, where they'll be side swiveled. Like I said, you can move the J hook around and give you a bunch of options. But here's my reasoning for center swiveling all my traps. A lot of people gawk at the fact that I center swivel a small 1 1/2 trap like this, and this is what I trap coons with. This is I've double jawed these. This is my go-to coon trap. I use these and I use dog proof. That's what I use. Now, why would I center swivel that? So I've got a couple different reasons. One thing is just consistency, right? Obviously, all my canine traps are center swiveled, as I showed you, and I like that fact for bedding. Whenever you dig a trap bed and you've got a trap, let's say here, that's side swiveled, you've got to do something with this chain. Now, if you dig your trap bed correctly, you're gonna dig a bowl. I mean, that's just the way that you dig a trap bed. So I'll set this trap here and I'll show you here real quick. So we'll set this trap. Now, what you're gonna do is you're gonna have all this chain. Whenever you dig that trap bed, that you've got to do something. You've got to tuck it underneath. You've got to do something with it, right? Now, having a trap that's center swiveled gives you a little bit of advantage already. Because if you dig that bowl and you make it like a true bowl, where the bottom is deeper than anything, you can see how that chain being center swiveled would fit so much nicer down in the bowl than you having to do something with this side swivel. Now, is it that big of a deal? In all reality, not really. But that being said, I like consistency on my line. You know, I'm always running and gunning, and having the fact that I can dig that exact same bed every single time. I don't have to adjust it. You know, it just makes things easier for me. So consistency is a thing for me. I like center swiveling. Let's go into the other thing. Now, this is something that I've actually had firsthand experience with. I assure you it doesn't happen all the time, but it's definitely, you know, it definitely happens. So let's look at tension points with this center swiveling versus the side swiveling. Now, ideally, whenever you catch whatever critter you're targeting, you would ideally like that critter to have his foot right in the middle of the jaw. You know, being stepped on the pan, you know, you want full commitment to it. That's the ideal place. Now, the truth of the matter is that doesn't always happen. We'd like to say it would, but that just doesn't always happen. Now, what happens is whenever you've got a center swiveled trap, whenever that animal goes to fight that trap, they're going to pull on it, they're going to mess around with it a little bit. What happens is, with it being center swiveled and that point being right here at the ground, however you're anchoring it, and that animal having his foot right there, he can only kind of pull one way, okay? He can't slide that foot from side to side. It's just not possible with a center swiveled trap, because you've essentially made a line, if you can imagine a line straight through. You know, you can extend the leg basically straight through to the chain. You just can't hardly move that foot around inside that trap. Whereas if we go here with this side swivel trap, what happens is, if you get a good catch, and this is a smaller round jaw trap, but let's say we've got this, let's say for instance, we've got this big square jaw bridger trap here. There's a lot more room in here. Let's say we had that side swiveled, right? Now you catch your critter right here in the middle, and he goes to fighting that trap, yanking and pulling. Coyotes are famous for it, really fighting traps hard. What happens is, that foot is actually able to slide over, because rather than being centered like it would be, now that point of anchor is way over here to the side. So as that animal lunges and he fights that trap, you can imagine we're drawing that straight line again down through the leg, through the chain. That foot can actually travel and move over to one side of the trap, the opposite side the chain's on. Now, this can do two things for you. Both of them are bad. Number one is, by that foot actually moving around, that can cause damage to the foot. You know, and we're in this game to not damage. It's why we use these good traps nowadays. You know, that's why we use all the techniques that we've adopted over the years. You know, the whole point is to have the critter in the trap, you know, waiting for us and undamaged if we need to let him go. So we don't want to cause damage to our critters that we're catching. And if you can get that foot to move over back and forth, that's where a lot of your damage. Whether or not you've got a lot of swiveling points, that can happen, and I've seen it happen. If you've got a critter, and we're going to take a coon for instance, because he's got a lot going on with his other hands. You know, if you've ever looked at a coon, they've got thumbs. They can grab things, right? Now, if you've got a coon, say, in a trap that's center swiveled, right? He's got one foot that's caught. Ideally, we're going to shoot for the front foot. There's no possible way that he can actually work that trap and get leverage on it with the other hand. You see what I'm saying? So if he's pulling like this, and he was to put his other paw on that lever, it's just going to pivot and rotate. He can't never get leverage to it. Now, this is kind of the opposite whenever you're looking at a side swiveled trap. And I've seen this happen. I've actually had a coon in a trap, and he's got out right in front of me for this reason. There's a reason that I center swivel everything. But what'll happen is, if you get a critter and he's pulling tight to this trap right here, say you've got an old trap, weak springs, whatnot, which is what happened to me in my case. So I mean, you know, there's all different sorts of factors. But what happens is, as that critter pulls, say that coon, he can get his hand there, and he can actually leverage that trap out with a lever on one side. Now if he's pulled hard enough, he's pulled his foot over there all the way to the side of that jaw. It's not over here, it's over here. So if he's pulling hard enough, and he can actually roll that jaw out, and I'll show you here, I'll demonstrate. I'll just throw a screwdriver here in. I'll throw a screwdriver in the trap here, and I'll step on the chain. I hope you guys can see this, but you can see here, I'm pulling right now. I'm pulling pretty hard on this screwdriver. It's just a slick metal screwdriver. Pulling pretty hard on it, and you can see I can't move it. Now, what happens is, if you can get leverage to this side, it comes right out. That's what happened to me. That is an issue that happens to me with side swiveling. Never had that issue with center swiveling. Now, if you're running your stuff strictly on drowners, not that big of a deal. Ideal is everything works, you're gonna get them in the water, they're gonna drown before they have issues fighting it. But if you're gonna have a critter in the ground, I firmly believe that center swiveling is definitely the way to go. All right, y'all, that's my argument on it. Short and sweet. I would love to hear your guys' opinion on this matter. Like I said, this is something that's been debated for a long time. I'd like to hear your guys' opinion. Are you one of those guys that's one way or the other, or are you like me and kind of go everything one consistent solid way? I would love to hear your guys' opinion on this matter. I know there's a lot out there, and if you do have an opinion on it, I would love if you would leave in the comments and justify your reasoning for doing what you do, whether the side swiveling or the center swiveling. I would really be interested in that. I've heard a lot of opinions saying that if you side swivel, what's actually going to happen is, if you was to get that foot to move over, it would actually pinch harder because you would be closer to the lever, which goes against my the foot moving around in the trap. But then again, like I said, if you can get a paw there and leverage up against that lever, the critter's gone. So leave me a comment. I'd like to hear from y'all. If you like this video, if you learned something from it, or well, even if you didn't, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up. It helps me out. And as always, y'all, appreciate the view. See y'all in the next one.